The development and study of genetically modified organisms originated from the concept of Mendelian genetics, where genes contained hereditary material that had the ability to affect phenotype. The idea of being able to cross certain alleles in order to produce desired traits was simply ineffable in the era of genetics. As time progressed, scientists such as Friedrich Miescher slowly discovered DNA, the main functional unit that contained this genetic material that was responsible for carrying the traits. The idea that DNA could carry such information amazed scientists, which brought about a level of curiosity regarding whether or not the material could be altered. In 1972, Stanley Cohen and Herbert Boyer utilized a restriction enzyme to cut genes from drug-resistant E. coli plasmids and rearrange them to see if they could change the genetic makeup of the DNA. After that utilization of recombinant DNA was deemed successful, the utilization of such technology was shifted towards creating organisms and the food industry. In 1981, Elizabeth Lacey and Franklin Constantini inserted rabbit adult beta-globin DNA into mirroring germline cells, developing a recombinant organism. Since then, scientists have been trying to alter the genetic makeup of organisms in order to make them optimal for human use. For instance, Flavor Saver tomatoes became the first genetically modified crop to be sold commercially due to increased demand. However, the crop lost profitability due to the lack of any flavor. Some modern crops that are being genetically modified today include alfalfa, canola, corn, and cotton. Now, we will transition into the emergence of superweeds.
Farmers use herbicides like Roundup, which contains glyphosate, to kill weeds in their crop fields. Normally, the Roundup would kill everything in the field, but the crops have been genetically modified to resist Roundup. Unknown to farmers, however, this overuse of herbicides has led to the emergence of superweeds. Farmers kept spraying Roundup and other herbicides, and the weeds kept dying. Eventually, there was a weed that could resist the Roundup because it had a random mutation that proved to be an advantageous adaptation. The adaptation resulted in a higher fitness for the individual, which meant it had more healthy offspring compared to the other weeds. And because of the higher fitness, natural selection acted on that individual. This, in turn, caused the trait of herbicide resistance to spread throughout the population, and the population evolved to create a generation of herbicide-resistant weeds called superweeds. The prevalence of the mutation that causes herbicide resistance is only 1 in a billion, but the problem is that one weed can produce 200,000 to 300,000 offspring with the herbicide-resistant trait, so the trait for resistance can spread very quickly through a population. Today, superweeds have become a massive problem in places like Minnesota, where nearly 16 million acres of corn and soybeans are planted each year. These are some of the fields where weeds resistant to herbicide are creating a problem. With no herbicide that can effectively combat the superweeds, farmers have been forced to cut down entire fields, losing their crops. Some companies like Dow, Bayer, and Monsanto are trying to find solutions to this problem by genetically modifying crops so that they are resistant to new herbicides. Once the corn and soybean crops are resistant, they can spray these new herbicides and kill only the weeds. Many people say this is a sort of toxic treadmill, and that more traditional methods should be used, so that multiple resistance, which are weeds resistant to multiple herbicides, don't become an even bigger problem.
In this chart, data from the University of Minnesota's research shows that certain weeds are becoming less affected by the herbicides containing glyphosate. This data is shown with the percent of weed populations controlled by the herbicides. The researchers varied both the herbicides and the weeds affected by them so we can see which herbicides are more effective and which weeds have adapted to their effects. In this second chart, giant ragweed and cochia were controlled well by some herbicides while poorly by others. Also, the water hemp, the last of the weeds mentioned in the article, was controlled pretty well by most of the herbicides.
There once was a town known as Weedville, where all the weeds lived in peace. Sadly, the humans could not compromise with the weeds, and were forced to remove them. They pulled and they plucked all day, but the weeds were strong and kept coming back. The humans proved to be smarter than the weeds, and developed a deadly poison, capable of wiping out all weeds and plants alike, to eradicate the weeds for good. The humans called it Roundup, the weeds called it death. This evil-laden spray quickly became a source of nightmares for the little weeds. Wherever the herbicides went, only death followed. After months of herbicide raids, Weedville was desecrated. All hope seemed lost. Another day brought another vicious onslaught of herbicide. Weeds withered left and right. However, one weed stood proud among his fallen friends. Never before had a weed been hit by an herbicide and lived. Those remaining in Weedville bowed in awe and called him Superweed. He knew there was something special about him, but he was afraid that he would be the only one of his kind with this superpower. In order to pass on this trait, he pollinated Wheatville, marking the inception of a new wave of superweeds. This new generation, determined to keep their city alive, continued to repopulate until nearly all the residents of Wheatville were immune to the evil herbicides. The humans were shocked and infuriated when they sprayed the herbicides, but the weeds refused to die. For now, the humans have retreated and left Wheatville alone, but the weeds are smart. They know the humans will come back for revenge, and when they do, the weeds will be ready, stronger than ever.